Exposed. The incredible journey of three founders who reclaimed their company against all odds. James stared at his computer screen, the glow illuminating his furrowed brow. Once, a dream of revolutionizing education had danced in the back of his mind, but now that glittering vision was dulled by betrayal. The ruthless corporate executive, who promised collaboration, had stolen their idea right from under their noses. James ran a hand through his hair, struggling to shake the weight of his mother's sacrifices from his thoughts. What if he failed her? Maria paced the small, cluttered office space they rented. Her heart raced as she jolted between panic and determination, memories of her father's grueling hours etched in her mind. With every fleeting thought of their dream crumbling, she felt the discomfort of betrayal tangling with a sense of hope. The mountain before them seemed insurmountable, yet her father's teachings urged her onward. Hadn't he always believed in doing things the right way? Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his face pale. Since losing his grandfather, who had been his moral compass, doubts surged within him. The memories of their long talks echoed in his head. Success isn't just about ambition, it's about integrity, his grandfather had said. Now, as their project faced insurmountable odds, Ethan could feel his resolve slipping. They were no longer just fighting for their idea, they were battling the integrity of their friendship. Suddenly, James's phone buzzed, pulling him from the depths of his thoughts. An anonymous text flickered at him. "You have no idea how deep the betrayal runs." A chill slithered up his spine. Who could they trust? What was left of their vision, if they couldn't lean on each other? He glanced at his friends, their expressions mirroring his own turmoil, and he felt the pressure mounting. Could he even confront the truth of what had happened? He needed to focus. James took a breath, wrestling with the racing thoughts in his mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the words echoed in his head, James felt the weight of their ambitions. The dreams that had once seemed so accessible were now tinged with desperation. Could they rise from this? The thought of failing weighed heavier than gravel, and the flicker of unease created a growing chasm. Each betrayal, each sleepless night robbed them of their trust in one another. Maria's voice pulled him back, demanding focus. "We can't let this go. We owe it to ourselves, our families." But as she spoke, Ethan frowned, and the room tightened. Even in unity, fractures were appearing. Tensions rose. Whispers of doubt seeped in. Could they withstand an avalanche of corporate greed? The answer loomed ominously as James clenched his jaw, half the man he'd hoped to be, caught between familial duty and the fraying threads of friendship. In that moment of decision, James's phone buzzed again. Another cryptic message. Panic ignited in his chest. Their fate hung in the balance, a fierce storm brewing just outside their fragile alliance. Would they confront the shadows of their betrayal, or would ambition extinguish the flame of their friendship? James stared at his screen, heart racing, uncertain of the next steps. The hour of reckoning approached, shrouded in dread and hope. James's mind raced. The glow from the screen blurred as he refocused on the others, grappling with the magnitude of their current reality. Each cryptic message felt like a crack in their foundation, and with each passing moment, the weight of despair threatened to bury any flicker of hope. "Guys," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if we can turn this around? What if we can outsmart them?" The idea took root, colliding with the dread swirling in his chest. He would no longer be a passive participant in this betrayal. It was time to reclaim not just their project, but their agency as founders. Maria's eyes brightened, her earlier agitation simmering down. "That's what I was thinking. We can build a new strategy. One that not only counters what they did, but makes our ideas even stronger." She began to pace again, her mind igniting with possibilities. If we understand their weaknesses, we can find a way to exploit them. Ethan, still against the wall, shifted the tension in his posture slackening as he engaged with the conversation. It means digging deeper than ever before. We need every bit of information about them, their investors, and their market. A flicker of determination sparked within him. But first, we need to be sure we stick together. No more secrets, okay? Transparency is key. The three exchanged glances, a silent pact forming amidst the chaos. It was a shift, the first step toward reclaiming their original vision. James could feel the pieces coming back together. Each heartbeat pulsed with resolve. They needed to pool their strengths, but doubt still gnawed at him. Could they truly overcome the treachery at play, without turning against each other? James cleared his throat, shedding the remnants of hesitation. Let us set clear roles. What does each of us bring to the table? The earlier tension melted into a brainstorming session, and the room began to hum with potential. They were stumbling forward, no longer paralyzed by fear. Maria tapped her chin thoughtfully.
I can handle research and outreach.
I'll dig into competitor analysis and find ways to communicate our renewed focus. There was a glint of her father's spirit in her eyes, the fire of determination. I can contact potential investors, people who believe in our original concept, Ethan added, his voice steadying. If we can present a compelling narrative about overcoming adversity, we might even win them over. James felt the jolt of energy surging through him. And I'll handle the tech side, polish our existing prototype, make adjustments, and create a more robust business plan that highlights our new insights. He could almost see the contours of their vision sliding back into place, radiating resilience. As they divvied up their tasks, the air thick with purpose, James found himself reflecting on their respective motivations. Each of them had their personal stakes, but was it enough to withstand the external pressures threatening to tear them apart? He felt the resolve hardening within him, but was still haunted by the specter of betrayal lurking just beyond their efforts. Hours slipped by under the warm glow of fluorescent lights, each person engrossed in their newfound purpose. As the sun began to set, weary but invigorated, they gathered once more. James pressed a finger against his already dinged laptop, gathering his thoughts. Just then, another text came through, an ominous warning that promised further fallout. The moment of truth loomed, and with it, the question of how deep the betrayal truly ran. Would their pursuit of reclamation unite them, or would the shadows once more examine each fracture of their alliance? The landscape of their professional lives was shifting once more, but they had yet to face what awaited them in the dark. What lay ahead might either complete their redemption or mark the end of everything they once held dear. As James placed his phone down, heart racing with a mix of hope and apprehension, he knew change was coming whether they were ready for it or not. Decisions hung precariously as they prepared to confront the real adversary, the very framework of their trust and belief in one another. James's fingers hovered over his keyboard as he processed the weight of their recent decisions. The text message flashed across the screen again, its cryptic content sending a nova wave of anxiety rippling through him. It was one thing to re-strategize. It was another to venture into the uncharted territory of betrayal and distrust. The familiar chill washed over him as he struggled to quiet the impending storm brewing in his mind. First things first, they needed clarity. All right, team, he began, attempting to sound more assertive than he felt. Let us check in. I want us to share what we've started working on, and any roadblocks we're facing. This is a collective effort. Ethan nodded, his face revealing the tension he was trying to mask. I'll start. I've reached out to a few previous investors, those who appreciated our innovation before. It's been tough, because who wants to invest in a sinking ship? He ran a hand through his hair, revealing his frustrations. But I think I have one lead, someone named Carol. She's had a history of supporting scrappy startups. The catch is, she wants a meeting, and I need to craft a story that not only captivates her, but allays her fears. Ethan's vulnerability struck a chord with James. He admired the courage it took to put himself out there.
We can help you with that.
What if we develop a narrative together that showcases not just the obstacles we've faced, but how it has fueled our innovation? James offered, Feeling the synapses of collaboration firing, Maria leaned in, her excitement bubbling over. And I can create a supporting presentation with the latest insights on our competitors, how we're positioned uniquely in the market. If we can paint a picture that shows our trajectory positively shifting, we could gain some traction. As the plan began to take shape, James felt a renewed vigor coursing through him. He realized that being proactive was not just an act of leadership, it was a crucible of personal growth. He had always been the behind-the-scenes tech person, solving problems but rarely taking center stage. Yet now, the stakes drove him towards deeper engagement, and he aimed to channel that energy into their pitch. He began sketching ideas for the prototype adjustments, envisioning how those improvements could enhance their offering's appeal. The late-night oil burned brightly in the office, illuminating their dedication, but James knew that the heart of their project lay not merely in the tech, but in the stories they would tell, individual and collective. Does this mean we're actually doing this? Ethan looked up from his seat, eyes gleaming with a mix of disbelief and hope. Yes, James declared with unexpected conviction. We're taking back our narrative. We will redefine what we stand for, the vision we had at the beginning. He was surprised to find he was speaking not only to them but also to himself, revitalizing the almost flickering belief he had in their mission. Yet, a part of him remained apprehensive. The reality of their former partner's treachery loomed large. What had initially been the backbone of their enterprise now cast a shadow. As they pooled their strengths, James found himself questioning whether the darkness lurking close by would consume them once more. What did it mean for him to lead? What if he stumbled? As the group steadily built their game plan, a knock at the door interrupted them. James's heart raced as he exchanged wary glances with Maria and Ethan.
Who could it be?
Their adversaries? A messenger from the darkness they sought to conquer? He swallowed hard, each sound in the office taking on heightened importance. The door creaked open. It was a familiar face, a former ally who had become a source of information and intrigue, but whether their intentions were genuine remained to be seen. "What are you doing here?" James asked, keeping his voice steady. The response hung heavy in the air, signaling that new layers of complexity were about to unfold, dragging them deeper into the murky waters of loyalty and deceit. The figure that stepped into the room was someone James recognized immediately: Rachel, their former marketing strategist. Her presence was a jarring reminder of better days, but also of the fragile trust that had unraveled since the betrayal. James's mind raced with questions, the uncertainty thick between them like fog. "Rachel," he said, keeping his posture rigid to mask the uneasiness gnawing at him.
What do you want?
Her expression shifted from anxious to resolute, as if she had rehearsed this moment 100 times before. "I came to offer you information, help with your current struggles. I know things that might be of interest to you." "Help?" Ethan echoed incredulously, crossing his arms defensively. "Isn't that a little rich coming from you?" James could sense the tension rising. Rachel's betrayal had not just hurt the company, it had personally stung him. He was torn. Was this genuine, or just another maneuver to bring them deeper into chaos? "I understand your skepticism," Rachel continued, her tone softening. "But believe me, I wouldn't come to you if it wasn't urgent. Your ex-partner is making moves that could hinder not just your attempts to reach out to Carol, but could affect everything you've worked for thus far. I have leads, I know what he is planning. Why should we trust you?" Maria interjected, her skepticism clear. "You were part of the problem." "I was naive," Rachel responded, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I've had time to think, and I realize I need to make things right. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a chance to prove that I can be part of a solution for once." James felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger, hope, and a hint of curiosity. Was it possible that Rachel had changed? Could history offer a second chance? Those questions circled in his mind like vultures, but he knew they had no choice but to consider what she was saying. "All right," James said finally, feeling the hesitant weight of leadership as he looked at his friends. "Let us hear her out. But I want complete transparency. No half-truths. This isn't just about us anymore." Rachel nodded, and as she began to weave her narrative, James felt the gears in his mind turning. She spoke of impending competition, tighter deadlines, and the information swirling around his former partner that he hadn't even thought to consider. Bit by bit, the pieces of a new understanding started to surface. Each detail rattled around in his thoughts, questioning his earlier assumptions about how far their previous issues had affected their path. Yet as she outlined her claims, James remained aware of a creeping doubt. Did they truly have the power to rewrite their future, or were they still prisoners of their past? Would embracing Rachel's vision offer them a pathway to liberation or merely ensnare them deeper into a deadly game of treachery? As the evening stretched on and the conversations opened new avenues of thought, an ember of determination sparked within him. This was not just about saving their company. It was about redefining his own identity and purpose in all of this. He was more than the tech dude in the background. He was a leader now, whether he wanted that title or not. But acknowledgement came with its own perils, a looming susceptibility to the same vulnerabilities they were trying to escape. Could he hold this team together? And in doing so, hold himself together? With dawn creeping closer as their meeting dragged into the early hours, an unnerving reality descended upon him. They were at a precipice. Not only were they fighting for their business, but they were battling their past selves. How could he navigate these complex waters without losing everything? The moment was heavy, resonating with the implications of what lay ahead. James shared a glance with Ethan and Maria, their expressions mirroring his own apprehension. As Rachel finished, he leaned back in thought. It was clear they faced a harrowing choice moving forward. "Let us take a break," he suggested, his voice steadier than he felt. A moment to regroup was necessary, but underneath, something deeper festered, an unsettling sense that every decision henceforth would define not only their venture but themselves. They needed a plan, but more than that, they needed the right resolve. Little did they know the next step would either stitch back the fabric of their team or fray it beyond repair. And as James stared into the weight of possibility ahead, he knew the time had come to face the shadows of his leadership. Would he rise to the occasion or crumble under the weight of doubt? James stepped outside into the cool morning air, needing the brief escape from the tension that had enveloped them indoors. The horizon was beginning to glow with the first light of dawn, echoing the conflicting emotions simmering within him. Uncertainty clashed with a fragile hope, each competing to define the essence of the moment. He rubbed the back of his neck, his mind still reeling from Rachel's unexpected offer and the web of potential consequences it hinted at. Was she genuine in her desire to help, or was this yet another pawn in a complex game of power? The weight of leadership felt heavier than before, and he wondered if just once he could navigate this storm without sinking beneath its waves. Turning away from the rising sun, James faced the entrance to the building, the remnants of the previous night's discussions still fresh in his mind. He needed to frame their next steps, whatever they might be, within a structure that honored their values. His instincts urged him to run, to distance himself from the reminder of past failures. But this was bigger than his fears. It was about his team, his commitment to them, and the potential for redemption inside. Maria and Ethan were deep in quiet conversation. He could see the doubts etched on their faces, mirroring his own. They had to find a common thread to bind them together, to harness their shared vision again. Feeling the urge to act, James approached, determined to guide them through this murky water. "Look," he began cautiously, his voice steady, "we have two options. We can shut Rachel out completely and risk losing everything to the moves our competitor is contemplating, or we can take a chance and see what she knows. This isn't just about survival. It's about reestablishing our mission and reclaiming our vision." Ethan leaned back, regarding him with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "And if Rachel offers a poison pill instead of a way forward?" "She's burned us before, James. We can't afford another misstep." "I get it," James replied, feeling how defensiveness could only erode their trust further. "But think of it this way. By not engaging, we potentially hand over the reins to our fate with no control over the outcome. I want to let that happen." A pause hung in the air. Maria broke the silence, her brow knitted in thought. "What if we approach this from a position of strength? We set clear boundaries and control the flow of information. Rachel needs to prove herself, not us." James felt a flicker of admiration. They were thinking critically, independently, yet united.
Exactly.
We'll hold her accountable. And if we manage to garner some valuable insights from her offer, it could turn the tide in our favor. Ethan and Maria exchanged glances, a shared determination springing forth, and slowly, he witnessed their resolve solidify. It was a moment of renewal, but also of fragile hope. As they charted out the specifics, James realized that they were intentionally doing more than just strategizing. They were interweaving their professional identities with their collective experience. He wasn't just a tech lead anymore. He was a foundational leader, someone who ushered everyone toward the light rather than allowing the shadows to consume them. All right, let us schedule a meeting with Rachel, James announced, an unexpected surge of decisiveness bursting through him. We'll go in prepared and leave no stone unturned. This could be our turning point. As they began to outline their strategy, a spark ignited within James. He could see the path forward beginning to crystallize, one shaped not just by adversity, but by determination and shared purpose. Yet, as a nagging doubt danced at the edges of his thoughts, it was clear that nothing was guaranteed. They were wading into uncertain waters, and the consequences could be dire if they miscalculated. In that moment, James contemplated a guiding principle he had often neglected. Every significant change required a confrontation with the truths of the past. This time, we do it right, he whispered under his breath, a silent promise to himself. But was he truly ready to confront Rachel, or would the echoes of betrayal still haunt him when the time came? The stakes had never felt higher, and the threshold of their next move loomed ominously ahead. All that remained was to face the unexpected consequences of their decision, whatever they might be. The meeting room felt oppressive, shadows converging like the storm clouds of doubt swirling in James's mind. As he arranged the chairs, a silent ritual of preparation, he caught glimpses of his own face in the reflective glass wall. There was uncertainty, yes, but also a newfound resolve that not even Rachel could extinguish. Maria and Ethan arrived, their presence grounding him amid a tide of self-doubt. They exchanged nervous glances, each brimming with questions just beneath the surface. It was clear that they shared the same fear. Was this the right path? James offered a reassuring nod, deliberately stifling his own uncertainties, projecting an air of calm that he hoped would bolster their spirits. All right, he began, forcing clarity into his voice. We control the narrative today. We lead the conversation. If Rachel thinks she can catch us off guard, she's mistaken. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, the tension mounting in the air. But what if she starts to manipulate? She's adept at turning tables. What's our fallback? James inhaled deeply, collecting his thoughts. The idea of manipulating the narrative didn't sit comfortably with him. It felt too much like playing her game. Our fallback is knowledge. If she tries to pull a fast one, we listen carefully and stick to the facts. We won't shy away from the hard questions. It was a valuable lesson the past had taught him. Knowledge is power, but awareness of one's environment was essential. He needed to ensure both his team and he remained vigilant. It felt as though he was standing on a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. Maria leaned in, her voice steadying. What about the emotional aspect? If she starts playing mind games, how do we keep from responding impulsively? Awareness, James replied, impressed by her insight. Consider each word she uses. This isn't just business, it's personal for all of us. We have to anticipate her maneuvers and be prepared to counter an emotional play fiercely. Each strategy they formed felt more solid, rooted in an understanding of their shared history and vulnerability. This wasn't just about Rachel's potential betrayal, it was about their own growth and commitment to each other. As the hour drew closer, a charge of adrenaline flowed through him. He had never thought of himself as a leader, never believed he could navigate treacherous waters. But the cracks in his old narrative were showing, fragments of an emerging identity proving decisive. In this moment, he was a captain steering a ship through rocky terrain. Let us remember, he said, pacing slightly, that negotiating with Rachel doesn't mean losing ourselves.
It means pushing back against the past.
We're reshaping our destiny here, positioning ourselves to reclaim what's ours. A palpable shift occurred in the room. His words ignited a flicker of determination in Maria's eyes, while Ethan straightened up, almost visibly shedding his apprehension. They were in this together. They had each other's backs. A sudden knock echoed through the room. The air thickened as James exchanged wary glances with his teammates. This was at the point of no return. "Ready?" he whispered, though deep down, he knew the answer wasn't just in preparedness, but in confronting their truths together. When Rachel entered, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Her sophisticated demeanor masked 1,000 subtle intentions, and James felt a familiar chill run through him. A scent of betrayal lingered in the air, intermingling with the tension. "James, great to see you again," she purred, her smile seemingly genuine, but the glint in her eyes told a different story. Underneath her polished exterior, he sensed the schemes were already swirling. He wasn't just ready to defend against her tactics, he craved to confront the very crux of his own insecurities. As the conversation unfolded, he deliberated the interwoven narratives of betrayal and trust, intent on shaping them into something new. But how long could their resolve hold against Rachel's manipulations? Would they be able to maintain the strength they had built, or would the shadows of past grievances consume them once again? The pivotal confrontation was upon him, the moment he had both anticipated and feared. What revelations would emerge from their engagement both within themselves and from Rachel's intransigence? With the stakes rising, the weight of the moment pressed heavy against his heart. Could he truly reclaim what had been lost, or was this just another illusion in a long line of false hopes? James braced himself for what lay ahead, both anxious and determined to unearth the truth. James held Rachel's gaze, the tension feeling like static electricity in the air. He could sense Maria and Ethan drawing strength from his poise, but the flicker of doubt still lingered, its breath cold against his resolve. Pushing through the oppressive atmosphere, he took a step forward, aligning himself with the narrative he wished to shape. "Let us get to the point, Rachel," he interjected, cutting through her silky pleasantries. "You've always been one for directness, and we appreciate transparency today." Her smile vanished for just a moment, replaced by a flicker of surprise, then quickly resurfaced with an edge of amusement. "Is that what you think, James? Transparency?" James's heart raced, his grip tightening on the edges of the conference table as he held the space, feeling more grounded than before. "It's exactly what we need. The past isn't a weapon anymore. It's our foundation." The moment hung between them, weighted by their shared history, a past marred with betrayal, but also accountability. Rachel's expression darkened. It was as if she had been strung, ready to snap back at his assertion. He braced himself, the urge to retreat battling the urgency to stand firm. "Interesting approach. I always thought the past was a tool for manipulation," she replied sharply, her eyes glinting with a predatory focus. She leaned in closer, testing boundaries. "Remember, you're not the only one with history to navigate." James's mind raced. Fighting back deeper instincts to yield, he quickly assessed his options. This confrontation was not merely about negotiating power, it was about asserting new values. "This isn't about wielding history against each other, Rachel. We need to reshape it, redefine what we are willing to lose and gain." Ethan chimed in, his voice steadying. "We're not defined by what happened before. We are moving forward, not in fear, but in determination." James nodded, encouraged by Ethan's bravery.
Exactly.
"This is about what we envision for ourselves, not what you've anticipated. Last time, you misjudged us." Rachel's slight smirk faltered, and for a brief moment, a crack formed in her armor. It was as if she hesitated, weighing their convictions against her own plans. "Let us say I'm willing to entertain your newfound resolve," she countered finally, her voice chillingly measured. "What's your proposal?" James felt a swell of confidence replace the doubt that had clouded him for so long. It was as if he had unearthed a hidden reservoir of strength. "We want a renegotiation of our partnership, a clear transition to greater transparency and shared accountability moving forward. This time, empower us instead of playing us." There was a hushed pause before Rachel responded, her eyes narrowing. You really think you can turn this around in your favor? His breath steadied. It's not about turning it in our favor. It's about finding balance in our partnership in a way you never considered. A flicker of something like admiration crossed her expression but vanished quickly. He was struck by the realization that perhaps Rachel had underestimated them all along. Perhaps this was what she did not see. He had changed, but so had Maria and Ethan. They were collectively stronger together. Meanwhile, internally James grappled with an impending realization, a lingering fear that Rachel held cards he couldn't foresee. He fought the urge to second-guess himself. Could their unity withstand her relentless pursuit of manipulation? With the conversation teetering on the brink, a sudden revelation dawned. True partnership required not just negotiation, but sincere vulnerability. If he could expose the intricacies of their emotional stakes, perhaps they could gain ground. Rachel, we may have lost trust, but we bring experience, resilience, and insight to this table. It's not just about business. It's about rebuilding what was once shared. A silence enveloped the room, a tension brimming with unknown possibilities. Rachel's enigmatic expression gave nothing away. Then, unexpectedly, she made a move that would change everything. Let us set up a follow-up. An opportunity to flesh this out. I may just have more to say. James felt the weight shift, anticipation electrifying the atmosphere. He couldn't ignore the thrill of potential reclamation, yet uncertainty hung heavily. Was Rachel adjusting her strategy, or merely biding her time to strike again? As they exchanged final words, an uneasy truce settled over them. But James wasn't naive. This was likely a mere prelude to deeper conflicts yet to come. He stared at Rachel, uncertainty blending with a burgeoning sense of purpose, questioning if he could navigate the winding path ahead. In this new light, could he maintain his footing on what felt a little like quicksand? As the meeting concluded, James felt the familiar whisper of doubt returning, yet he clutched tightly to the dawn of a new beginning. He'd uncovered a slice of strength, but would it be enough for what awaited them in the next confrontation? With one closing glance, Rachel exited, leaving behind an unresolved tension that hung thick in the air. James turned to Maria and Ethan, his resolve hardening. What's our plan for the next step? But he couldn't shake the feeling. Was the real conflict just beginning, or had he merely scratched the surface of something much deeper? As the door closed behind Rachel, James felt the remnants of tension dissipate, but it was quickly replaced by a gnawing urgency. We have to be smarter this time, he said, his voice low, but barely masking the simmering intensity within. Ethan, seated to his right, shifted in his chair, his brow furrowed. We've been playing catch-up for too long. If we're going to negotiate, we need knowledge leverage. Maria leaned forward, the fire in her eyes igniting James's own resolve. What can we uncover about Rachel's ambitions? We can't afford to let her dictate the pace anymore. If anyone knows her patterns, it's us. James absorbed their suggestions, the impulse for action electrifying his thoughts. We need to reassess our roles. Each of us brings strengths to the table, but we need to play those up. Ethan nodded enthusiastically. I can dig into the financials, track the recent moves she's made. There has to be a weakness somewhere. Maria interjected, and I'll focus on our connections network with others who've faced Rachel. Insights from insiders might give us an edge. James felt a spark inside him, fueled by camaraderie. This wasn't just about battling Rachel. This was about solidifying their foundation, a platform to rebuild from the ground up. Perfect. Let us meet tomorrow to consolidate what we've found. But he paused, nerves still prickling the back of his mind. We must be careful how we approach her next. With the meeting reconvened, James found himself pacing before the window, watching the clouds play against the evening sky, their constant shift reflecting his internal tumult. Could he maintain the vision of himself that was emerging from these doubts? The week hadn't just marked a pivotal moment with Rachel, it marked a pivot in his own professional identity. He was no longer the subordinate player in this game. He had the potential to redefine the stakes. As night deepened outside, he caught glimpses of his past self in the window's reflection, the anxious entrepreneur, burdened by uncertainty. But with each revelation, he felt the weight ease, replaced by a determined resolve to confront not just Rachel, but the very fears that had held him back. In that moment, he understood that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a door to strength. It opened the space for authenticity among his team. As he turned back toward Maria and Ethan, his heart steadied, remembering what they were truly fighting for, not just the company, but their shared aspirations. Tomorrow we come prepared. And let us remind Rachel of who she is dealing with us, he said, infusing the words with steel. This time, we push back. They nodded, a pact unspoken yet palpable in the room. They would face this challenge, not just as business partners, but as allies forging an undeniable path forward. Yet, as they exchanged a few brief laughs to alleviate the tension, a deeper hesitation lingered beneath. The success of tomorrow's gathering rested on uncharted territory. What if Rachel countered with a revelation of her own, a card that shut them down before they even began? As James walked out to the parking lot, the night air blanketed him like an unfurling promise, sparks of confidence lighting his eyes. The stakes had risen, but so had his determination. And as he let the streetlights guide him, the lurking question crystallized in his mind. Sharp as glass, what unseen challenges awaited him when they reconvened? A confrontation loomed, and with it, the potential for growth or further defeat. Just then, his phone buzzed. The message read, "We need to talk. It's about Rachel." James paused, a shiver of anxiety mingling with excitement coursing through him. What was the nature of this talk? Would it jolt him further into action, or cast a shadow over their attempts to reclaim control? He stood at the precipice of uncertainty, staring into the depths of both opportunity and peril. Could he be prepared for whatever lay ahead? The message lingered in James's mind like a storm cloud. We need to talk. It's about Rachel. The urge to respond immediately battled with the cloud of uncertainty.
Who was reaching out?
The unknown had a way of amplifying anxiety, but it was also the catalyst for change, and James was beginning to embrace the potential irony within that dichotomy. He took a deep breath, leaning against the car. It was time to redefine the role he played in this unfolding narrative. If it was a fight for the company, then couldn't he afford to grapple with trepidation. As he slid into the driver's seat, thoughts raced. What if this discussion unveiled intel that shifted the balance in their favor? Or, even worse, what if it introduced a weakness he had yet to acknowledge? The drive home transformed into a reflective journey. The streets glimmered with fluorescent lights, and the distant buzz of a city vibrated all around him. James's mind was a whirlpool of possibilities as he envisioned the landscape of the approaching meeting. He needed to be sharp, adaptable, not just for the meeting with Rachel, but for anything that might emerge, like a clandestine ally or, perhaps, an unexpected betrayal. Once at home, he sat at his kitchen table, papers spread before him like cards in a game of poker, each report laden with the weight of potential secrets, weaknesses, and opportunities. What he possessed was no longer a mere collection of data, it was ammunition in the battle for leverage. He began laying out the pieces, analyzing Rachel's previous maneuvers, attempting to uncover connections he could exploit. He unearthed a series of patterns. Rachel often thrived in chaos. Her decisions danced around risks that others deemed reckless. What if he could turn that very chaos against her? Strategizing became his new form of self-expression, reshaping his identity from passive observer to active creator. Flipping through documents, he studied each line and number. Hidden within those papers was his own potential, waiting to be tapped. Hours bled away. The once palpable tension morphed into a quiet determination as he began jotting down notes for what he would say to Rachel. To confront her required meticulous preparation. He framed his approach, anticipating her responses. Would she respond with arrogance, as she typically did? If so, how would he use that arrogance to empower his position? Visualizing the conversation took on a rhythm, a dance he had not practiced before. Sleep eluded him as thoughts flickered in his mind, visions of the power dynamics at play. The more he studied the documents, the clearer it became. Knowledge was not just power, it was liberation. Could he finally break free from the chains of his previous self? He had to believe he could. This was about more than just the company. It was about reclaiming the future he envisioned for himself and his team. As dawn broke, the sunlight spilled into his workspace, illuminating the latest batch of information he had compiled. The name of a financial consultant caught his eye, a name he recalled from a previous meeting. They had insights on market trends and might possess knowledge advantageous against Rachel's strategies. He felt an adrenaline surge. This instinct to revitalize his approach sparked a willingness to reach out and gather intelligence. Just as James dialed the number, his phone rang again. Startled, he interrupted his own momentum and glanced at the screen. Breathing heavily, he registered the caller ID. It was Maria. After a moment's hesitation, he answered. Her voice filled the room, rich with determination. "I have something important to share." James's mind raced. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the kind of discussion that could change everything. What revelation awaited him? What new cards were in play? As he listened, he sensed the tides shifting. The thrill of uncertainty blended with the anticipation of discovery. Would this data propel them forward, or unveil yet another challenge? Now, they were truly on a precipice, ready to either break through or fall back. James stood in front of the laptop, sunlight streaming through the window as the day's clarity washed over him. Yesterday's chaos was just that, yesterday. Today was different, and it felt invigorating. He glanced around the office, his team bustling with newfound energy as they prepared for their imminent meeting with Rachel. The sense of purpose they had cultivated together was palpable. No longer were they victims of a betrayal, but architects of a transformative future. "Today, we redefine our narrative," he announced, his voice cutting through the room. A chorus of nods reaffirmed the silent vow they had made to reclaim their vision gamefully. Maria, with her sharp focus, was busy outlining their competitors' weaknesses, while Ethan's confident demeanor belied the tension he had battled during their uphill climb. With the team converging their ideas, James felt a surge of pride. They had crafted a comprehensive strategy, mapping out anticipated responses from Rachel. More than that, they were moving forward as equal partners, no longer afraid of what lay ahead but ready to confront it head-on. Together, they shed old fears and solidified their roles within the company, emerging stronger and more united than before. The moment they stepped into the meeting room, James felt an unfamiliar confidence settle around him. Rachel arrived shortly after, her presence still tinged with uncertainty from past dealings. As she greeted them, he noticed her guarded demeanor juxtaposed with their buoyant spirit. "Let us cut to the chase," he suggested, steering the conversation toward the issues at hand. The dynamic had shifted. He was ready to reclaim control of the dialogue. As discussions unfolded, he laid out their terms for renegotiation, respecting the past but firmly rooted in a vision that sought collaboration over manipulation. The energy in the room was electric. There was a marked contrast to their previous encounters. "We're not looking for a handout," James asserted, gazing directly into Rachel's eyes. "We're asking for partnership. We've learned from our missteps and will only move forward with transparency." Her reaction was immediate. Gone was the familiar confidence. Rachel's expression morphed from offense to contemplation, clearly grappling with their newfound resolve. To the extent that she felt powerful before, they now held the reins, positioning themselves firmly at the table. As the hour unfolded, James navigated through negotiations, addressing every counter Rachel raised with counterarguments that displayed not only his grasp of their value proposition, but also a tempered command of the business narrative. He integrated insights from Maria and Ethan seamlessly, showcasing a unified front that shocked Rachel into reconsideration. When the meeting finally reached its denouement, James felt the weight of triumph and the sweetness of hard-earned respect settle deeply within him. They had gained operational authority, redefining not only the parameters of this partnership but also the contours of their professional identities. They were no longer divided. They had grown into themselves as individuals and as a team committed to a shared destiny. As Rachel departed, leaving behind an air of uncertainty, James felt an exhilarating rush of accomplishment. It was not only a victory over their rival but also a testament to their growth. They had turned obstacles into opportunities, chaos into clarity. Reflecting on the past few weeks, James understood that each challenge they faced had served as a catalyst for transformation. They had not just fought for their company, but reclaimed their integrity and fortified their bond. Their dream was not merely about building a successful business. It was about standing firm in their convictions, demonstrating resilience in the face of adversity, standing taller, with a clear path ahead. He turned gleefully to Maria and Ethan. "We did it," he said, a newfound authority in his voice. "We proved that our strength doesn't come solely from what we create, but from who we become in the process." Their smiles mirrored his sentiment. Factors of change had shifted, and confidence now accompanied every step they took. Walking out of the office, James inhaled deeply. He was ready for whatever came next, aware of his worth, the value of integrity solidly in his possession. Individually and collectively, they emerged transformed, instilled with a solid confidence that went hand in hand with their recognized competence. Today marked a pivotal moment not just for their business, but as a declaration of independence from their past failures. As he stepped onto the street with his friends beside him, he felt a glimmer of pride for the journey ahead. This was the moment he had fought for. Now he would embrace every challenge, ready to achieve even greater heights. Make sure to support us on this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your appreciation for this transformative journey. Comment your reactions and theories about this exhilarating ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.